We'll wait a
What's
couple
up,
minutes.
everyone? Oh, good memory on the live stream. Was that you, Michael?
I got you.
Oh, yes.
We'll wait a
What's
couple
up,
minutes.
everyone?
We're live.
Sweet.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
All right, guys. As a reminder, make sure your chat settings are set to everyone. Change your chat. Good to go. Changed. Sweet. Did not have the time yesterday. Thrilled to join today. Sweet. Excited about today. Thanks for the plugins. No bacon today. No. No bacon.
No bacon.
Theodore Roosevelt instead.
I look
No,
like
no
a character
bacon.
out of Yellowstone, huh? That's cool.
That's the dopest compliment you can
Yeah, I
receive.
like that. Which character? Or just like in general?
Hi from Sweden. Yeah, please, no more drills for my head today, Amari. Someone asks, is that a Juno 60 next to Caleb?
Someone has a good eye. It's my baby.
That's his conversation piece that he keeps in the frame.
Yeah, it's not even plugged in. I've never
Really?
used it. I'm just kidding. I made it out of cardboard just so I could feel cool.
I used to do that with rack gear, so people would come to my studio.
Are you serious?
Yep. Just take a bunch of pictures of like disconnected hardware, like faces.
There you go. Secrets to the industry, everyone. Oh,
Fake it till you make it.
Nobody ever knew.
We want bacon. We were just having a conversation about hot sauce. Anybody love hot sauce? Let me know in chat.
What was it? Yeah, so humpbacks. Yesterday, people thought they'd logged into a humpback snorkeling webinar. Today,
Yeah.
we always do food. Food is always a recurring theme.
We're all just
Yeah.
hungry, I think.
We're hungry.
At least one of the days is always starts with a conversation about food.
Do you like hot sauce, like blows your ears off, or do you like flavorful hot sauce?
No, I don't like any hot sauce. Maybe Frank's. That's it.
Well,
That's it for me. And that might as well be water.
Yeah, I can't handle spice either.
Mm-mm. No spicy
well,
for me.
not all hot sauce is hot, you know. A lot of times it's just a flavor thing.
Yeah,
True.
so I'm more of a flavor guy.
Yeah, Frank's is like a flavor thing. It's not hot.
I love watching people struggle on First We Feast.
Oh yeah,
On
that's
show.
so funny. Hot ones.
Yeah,
What's
hot
that? First
Uh-huh.
sweet feet? What's
Ever
that?
watch Hot Ones?
No.
Shout out to Hot Ones to bomb. Yep.
hot one
Oh, I know what you're talking about. This is with the
is-
celebrities.
yeah, celebrity
Yeah.
interviews, and they crank up the heat over I think like 8 to 10 spice levels.
Yeah.
Scoville goes up to like 1 million or something crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I
Uh-uh.
actually just ordered some hot sauces from their lineup.
Nice.
They'll be here today. I'm very excited.
I'll be coming over. I'll invite myself.
You're not invited.
Inside joke.
Hello from
Caleb and I
chat.
actually live. Caleb, for anyone who's interested, Caleb and I actually live within 15 minutes of each other.
We do. We're actually also studio owners together, business partners.
Studio A, Studio B.
Slow Wave Studios and Black Fox Mastering.
Have we decided who's A and who's B, Caleb?
Oh, you're B for sure. By default.
All right. That works.
By default. Looks like you're recording some drums in there, huh?
You see that?
It's cool.
They're all made out of cardboard too.
Nice. Well done.
He is
Cool.
post-processed.
Studio C for Caleb and Studio D for Dane. Why have we never figured this out? Who posted that?
I like it.
You win the candy bar today.
Juan. Send Juan a candy bar.
Next time you're in Utah, I'll buy you a milkshake.
Send a
No one on our team has a name starting with A. Blake would be Studio
Wayne.
B.
Alex Wayne.
There we go. Alex is now
Alex.
Studio A.
Mhm.
I'm Studio R. Man, I'm getting low priority.
Way down the
I'm not
list.
getting any clients.
It's like a green screen studio or something.
It's like Studio A is like a few £100 a day. How much is Studio R? Like, I have to pay you to come to my
To pay
studio.
Yeah, exactly.
R rated. Oh, I'll go for that.
Yeah.
At least that's a bit more interesting.
Rob is the sensitive guy in the group. I like this month's chat.
Yeah.
Rob
You guys-
equals
You guys have
Bob.
been funny
Studio B.
Good zingers.
and smart. You guys were nailing it yesterday. Love that.
Yeah, we're just waiting another minute
Yep. Still
for
people
folks to come in.
filing in.
Yep.
So,
Is it possible to fix out of two notes in mixing? It is, but we'll talk about that today.
Ted says fully with you. Sweet.
Jake, where did you get your lightsabers? I need to get some for my studio.
Oh, Amazon.
What are they called again?
They're
not
they're
cool.
called corner lights.
Okay. I might just do
actually
the
you
exact
can-
same thing as you.
Yeah, dude, they're like way cheaper than like if you're searching color changing LEDs for like film and photography and things like that. Just like prices go way up. But just the two of these, I think these are $50 a piece, maybe. Like nothing compared to like legit studio lights, right?
I need to figure out. I haven't figured out the plan for the new studio yet. It's literally just a room full of boxes right now with some damp walls that need fix. I'm going to be in a basement like you guys.
I want to help you
Join
build
the,
your
join the
studio up.
club.
I want to help you do it. I love doing
The thing
that.
is, I think we might dig it out even more at some point. So I've got like it's annoying when you know it's all going to get totally screwed up in like a year or two,
Yeah.
but I'm still just going to have to do it. Do Caleb and Dane play instruments?
Yeah.
I think
Well enough.
oh, do we?
I toured as a guitar player many, many years ago, but I wasn't very good. The band was good, but I wasn't very good. I play a little bit of everything, but nothing very well. Dane plays keys pretty dang well and guitar pretty dang well. Fun fact about Dane, he's actually an opera singer. If you were lucky enough, he can legit sing opera.
Deflate 'em.
Straight up, went to school for it, graduated vocal performance major.
Don Giovanni, Deflate Mouse.
What's your favorite opera to sing?
Don Giovanni was the most fun. So I was I'm gonna butcher like the storyline, but basically I get killed. I'm like this rich mansion owner and get killed in the beginning. of the opera, and then I come back as a ghost to haunt the murder. And I get put on a platform, and I'm basically like coming from underground. Put me on a platform and slowly raise me, and I sing Don Giovanni and some very hardcore opera.
Are you a bass or are you a baritone?
Oh, dude, I'm totally offended by that question.
It was my intention to
Must be a
offend.
bass.
No, yeah, I'm pretty hardcore bass.
Can you sing full bass?
Only bass.
Wow,
get
That's
offended.
cool, man.
Yeah, I a terrible range. I couldn't really hit like classical baritone notes, like go up to like D and E, which is crazy to me. No can do. Not without belting it.
Oh yeah, guys. I can totally tell you the brand on these lights. People are still asking questions about the lights.
Like
They're over the conversation about Dane's opera career.
I
they're
know.
like Dane, enough.
Too
No one
funny.
cares.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we got. Hold on, guys. We'll find it.
I actually have a couple of those lights too, Jake. You can't see them, but I have a couple up here. But I think yours are taller.
So happy with them. Yeah, what are they? 4 foot?
We need a
Or
mastering class that's done in opera song format. I
There you
would
go.
pay to see
Yeah.
that. I'd pay to see that.
Yeah, $88 for the pair. Mm,
I was actually listening to some Pavarotti on Sunday, and I was like, "Wow!" You get all these other guys, you know, Andrea Bocelli. You got all these other guys that try, but Pavarotti had something just extra. He was so good.
Thanks everyone who cares.
It's like four people.
What's funny is that Caleb and I, we actually, we have a song that we produced a band called Oka, and we actually had me sing opera in an SM57 like 8 times. So
It's
it sounded
true.
sounded like an opera chorus.
Team Dane, 5 people now. Okay. OKKAH. They never got anywhere because they broke up right when we got done with the album, but the music's super cool. Love that band. Yeah, a reminder, chat settings set to everyone, and if you're new, go into settings and be sure to change your audio to high definition audio and stereo. That'll help you hear things better today. And that's going to become more important. Zach Bryant, Oka is so good. Welcome, Zach. My man, Zach Bryant, he has a wonderful band called Die Shiny.
Yes.
Incredible stuff. Just released a new song.
Yes. Shout out to Zach and Die Shiny.
Check out Die Shiny. Very cool stuff. All right. Well, should we dive in? Is everyone ready to rock and roll today?
let's do it.
Thank you, Paul. Let's dive in. Enough of this chit chat. What are we doing? Here we go.
Someone says, remember to turn up the shakers.
Fix the Mix Challenge Day 2. Welcome, everybody. I love Day 2. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Welcome back. Hopefully yesterday was really informative for you and you had some fun doing those action items from last night. Just to go over those again, you should have bounced down your mix and imported a stereo track into a new session, imported a reference track, and then used those tools, a frequency analyzer, a compressor for dynamics, also visuals, also your ears, apply a limiter. And all of this is really, again, just to inform, give a new perspective on your mix, right? Hopefully pulls you out of being too close to it if you are, and just gives you some insight into things you might be missing. I hope you wrote down some of these things so that you can work on those today. And I noticed some of you shared your findings in the school community, and I thought that was really cool. There's some really great conversations happening in the school community, so it's one of the things I really love about this is just seeing everyone's comments and discussions and everyone helping each other and sharing music and networking. And that stuff's really cool. So keep doing that. Keep participating in the school community. We love to see it. We talked yesterday a lot about objectivity. And I think that's the main thesis I want everyone to take away from yesterday. Even if you didn't really understand the tools in the end that we talked about, or maybe you already use those things and you've been doing it for years, the big takeaway at the end of the day isn't about the tools or any of that stuff necessarily. I think what I want to stress is just, I hope everyone can find a renewed dedication to searching for greater objective skill in this industry for their skill set. And, I want to reemphasize that I believe one of the biggest things holding people back of all the students I talk to and everyone that I work with, it's that they've kind of fallen into this trap which exists right now where everyone kind of wants the quick fix with their music when it comes to the objective side of things. So instead of getting that deep technical understanding, that real left-brained understanding, and that mastery over sound, they're resorting to tips and tricks and templates and the new latest plugin that's supposed to save everything, and every video is 3 tips to save your mix and 5 tips that'll change your life and win you a Grammy, and all of that's just really nonsense. And it doesn't matter where you are in your career. If you're just starting out, get rid of all that noise and just realize that it's much more simple than that. If you can get a great room, if you can train your ears every day, if you can get a deep understanding of the tools, the basic tools, EQ, compression, even limiting, just the basic stuff, but you understand it on a very, very deep level and develop instincts to use all those tools, and you have the ears to back it up, that's what's actually going to get you to that Grammy. That's the stuff. No one is doing anything special who's doing this at a Grammy level. They just are masters of the foundational stuff. And for those of you who are more advanced, who understood more of what we were talking about yesterday and have been doing that for a while, it's the same thing. The energy put into objective learning never stops. If you talk to anyone who's done this for a long time, who's very successful, they're always still hungry and thirsty for learning. And they continue to do practice every day to continue to get better. And everyone on my team, for example, still does ear training every day, does practice rigorously and all the time. And you just have to if you want to keep up. So hopefully, if you took nothing else away from yesterday, it's just be committed to that part, because that's what's really going to improve things for you and get you to where you want to go. And yesterday was just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to it, and it really takes many years and a dedication to it to develop. And the next level is just following that, being meticulous about continuing to educate yourself and practice. And I got some questions yesterday about mastering. So do you need to learn mastering to be objective? Well, no. Mastering just happens to be a really great way to learn it, because it gives you a couple things that are important. One, it is the only objective part, or fully objective part of the whole music creation process, which is powerful. But it also gives you that end in mind perspective. And I think that is what ends up being the most powerful thing, in addition to the objectivity, is that you realize that everything's connected together. And the moment you press record all the way to when you apply the limiter, every choice you make is going to add up to something. And if you have a perspective of where you're going with everything and how it's going to sound when you apply that limiter, that is when things start to change, when you have that perspective and mindset. And I have this slide here because I don't think it's just mix engineers who should learn mastering. Should you learn mastering as a self-producing artist? I think you should. And here's why. We are our own worst enemy, I think, sometimes when it comes to our ability to, yeah, with music, right? We have to get out of our own way sometimes. And there's a lot of people out there who believe you can't mix and master your own stuff. How many times have you heard that? Am I going to be one of the only people that ever says to you that that's absolutely, unequivocally not true? I promise you that's not true. The reason why most people think that is because they don't have an objective foundation. But once you have that objective foundation and you know how to switch mindsets into a left brain from the right brain and everything's measured and metered, the great secret I have found is that the self-producing artist can actually take their stuff farther than any other mix and mastering engineer ever could. And I've seen that. Because you have the vision. And if you learn to compartmentalize the processes and approach each process the right way, I'm convinced you can even take your stuff way farther than anyone else could. I have students, for example, who have learned this, who I hear their stuff and I go, there's no way I could have got it to that level. And I'm pretty good at what I do. But they have a vision that I don't have, and now they have this skill and ability to compartmentalize, and so they're able to take their stuff way farther. And so the mastering that you learn becomes this anchor. This objectivity you learn from it becomes an anchor to keep yourself in check and to learn to compartmentalize those processes. And it lets you connect the left and right brain. So it's not just going to teach you the objective stuff, and I mentioned this yesterday, but there is this moment when you're learning this objective skill in which you're able to connect it to the subjective and creative parts where everything starts to unlock. Most people that I talk to who are frustrated with their productions feel like they get to these points where they have these amazing and beautiful ideas in their head, but they're just not able to get it to sound right when it comes out of the speakers. I hear that all the time. Well, what this is those moments of creativity are restricted by a lack of technical understanding about how to shape sound and get it to come out of the speakers the right way, right? And so what that objective part gives you, this left brain and right brain connection, is that when those moments come, you're not limited anymore and you can stay in that creative flow. And suddenly your creativity is unlocked. It's incredibly powerful stuff. You're also able to find the weak link. This is part of being accountable, but some of you may listen to objective referencing and the metering tools and everything we used yesterday and go, this isn't a mix problem, this is a production problem or even a performance problem. I need to sing this differently. I need to record this slightly differently. I need to angle my mics differently. I need to do some things so that when I get into the mix, it's easier to do. And when I get into the master, it's easier to do, right? It's easier to make it sound great. And you'll find the weak links, and because of that, be able to focus on those areas that are weak and improve them so the whole process starts to become this well-oiled machine, and you start to pump out the best music of your life. And then for some of you, it really just keeps you in check to the OCD. I know there's some of you fall victim to over-processing, overthinking. Does anyone have a problem with that? Over-processing, overthinking? Do you keep coming back to the mix, keep coming back to the production, tweaking, until you actually get diminishing returns at some point and make it worse? Has anyone ever done that? Am I the only one?
You're not alone.
What objectivity does, and this ability to have an end-in-mind perspective, is it just keeps you in check. It pulls you out of that tendency to OCD and rabbit hole down all those Alice in Wonderland rabbit holes that you go down where you get lost, and you keep yourself in check to a measured reference, to a measured anchor of objectivity. So I think it's important for even self-producing artists to learn mastering. I think it's a wonderful skill to learn. And again, that end-in-mind thinking is super powerful. And for those of you who are mix engineers, you must learn mastering, in my opinion. But how many of you who are mix engineers are including a master into the price of your mix?
Nah, I used to do that. For sure.
Be honest. You're just including it in there. You're missing out on a huge opportunity. And maybe it comes because you're not fully confident in the mastering process. You're kind of just doing, you're just mostly turning it up, and it's not something you're fully proficient at. But I want to encourage you to learn mastering because you can compartmentalize these processes, and it's going to give you some skill sets as a mixing engineer and as a mastering engineer that will be incredibly valuable for you as your business. First off, obviously, you can push back on your own mix if you're mixing as well. So if you're working on a mix and a master for a client, it's something that will inform your mix. But also, it gives you the ability to push back on mixes you get from other clients. You can just be a mastering engineer. And what this does for you is it offers something that the robots can't offer. So if you add mastering to your repertoire and you're worried about the robots taking over, is this a sustainable industry? The robots do okay. You know what I'm talking about when I say robots? These algorithms where you can pay $10 and get a master. They do okay. They're all right. They're not great though. Have you ever tried them? They just do okay. But their algorithms are going to get better. So is it unsustainable to do mastering? No. Because what the robots can never give to the client is that human touch and interaction. You break these things apart, and if you offer this, and even if you just offer just the mastering portion of the service, what you can do is offer, for example, one of the things I do is offer free mix notes. So if someone comes to me for a master and the mix is pretty close, I'll just offer free mix notes. Hey, change the bass a little bit, do this on this snare, do this, whatever, and I can make the master better. People love that. Robots can never do that. So what if the mix is a little bit worse? Well, then I offer to mix it. Now I'm upselling people into other services. Now I want to be really ethical about this, don't I? I wouldn't just do this if I can offer them free mix notes. But sometimes the reality is they're not going to be able to get it there, and so they'll be happy to pay you to do it. And then the other thing I want to point out is that mastering sometimes, the perspective you get from it will teach you the great ability to just sometimes say no. This is one of the most important things I ever work on with my students, because we work on a lot of technical skill, but we also work on the business part of things and getting people the right mindset to be successful in the business. And one of the things you have to learn sometimes is to say no, don't take a project. There's one thing that I've found throughout my time in charging people for doing mix and mastering or in production from people is that the people who pay me the least are always my worst clients. You'd think they'd be happy because they're paying the least, but they're actually always the most unhappy. Why is that? Well, it's because their stuff usually isn't as good. And they have these expectations that you can make something incredible that's, they want Kanye, but they sound like Looney Tunes. And so their expectation is off. Whereas the people who have paid me the most are always the happiest. And so there's this mindset shift that can happen with this kind of perspective where you change the type of customer you're willing to work with. I think you should change the mindset of, I'm practicing, I'm just doing free work, or I'm just doing cheap work because I'm practicing. No, practice your stuff, and then when you charge, and you charge what you're worth. And you work with the clients who will pay you what you're worth and appreciate the work you do, because you've trained and worked really hard to get to where you are. That's the mindset shift. I'd rather you spend the time marketing yourself as opposed to take the client that will just waste your time and not pay you very much for it.
Aaron just said Kanye is a Looney Tune.
That's a bad analogy. I love this chat.
Well done.
Well done. Does that make sense? So add mastering onto your business and charge separately for both of them. They're separate services. You should be charging separately for both of them, and learn it so that you can offer, even if you're just doing mixing for people, the stuff that I'm talking about here. It really adds a lot to your business. And all of this is just going to force you to have better expectation management and communication up front with clients. Anyone who comes to work with me will learn technical skill, but the people who are successful in this industry are the ones that have great client relationships and have great expectation management and communication up front in the business process. So talking about the mix, talking about their perspective, getting notes from people, getting references from people, just going through that process. And then, also sometimes you don't take the project. So you're finding out all that stuff up front. And I just want to say really quick something. So there was a question about the economy of mastering. I think this is really cool. Check this out.
This is cool. This is great.
So for those of you who are mixing, the goal would be to get your time down. Hopefully the objective learning and all that technical skill can get you the time down to where you can do a mix in 4 to 6 hours and charge $400 to $600 for it, which equals $100 an hour. That's great money. I think $100 an hour is perfectly fine. We can make a living off of that. This is why you add mastering to your business. We teach our students to get to the point where they can master a track in 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't need to take longer than that. If you have the instincts, you have the room, you have the ears, you go in, you make the moves, and you're done. And so it shouldn't take 10 to 15. In fact, it's better if it takes that short amount of time because you have a totally objective perspective and fresh ears through the entire process instead of spending hours on it and getting ear fatigue. So there's quality in the ability to work quickly, in speed. Not speed for the sake of speed, but speed for the sake of quality. So 10 to 15 minutes, I can charge $75 to $100 per master, which means I make $400 to $500 an hour. Of all the things I do, licensing, production, film scoring, mixing, mastering is by far my best dollar per hour.
Dude, if you could do four masters a day, 5 days a week,
done.
You got full-time income right there.
It's by far my best dollar per hour, and it's the easiest to get clients. If you have a mixing business, add mastering to it, there's tons of people out there that'll pay $75 or $100 when they can't afford $400 to $600. And those mix notes you give them and you get them a great product, they'll be with you forever. And if you're an artist even, maybe add this to your repertoire and help fund your artist self. I have students who are artists in the program who are trying to make it as artists, and they fund it through offering mastering and mixing. But it's a minimal time commitment. You just do that 10, 15 hours a month.
Yeah, 5 hours a week.
Yeah. I had a student who just got a 12 song album. It took him 2 hours to do, $1,200 in 2 hours. So it's not, this isn't guessing, this isn't rare, this is just what's happening all the time. Anyway, I think that's interesting, and I don't think a lot of people realize the value of it. So you should be compartmentalizing these things, and I think you should add mastering and to your skill set if you can, for not just for the objective purposes, but also monetarily. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that useful information?
Interesting point, Caleb, that you maybe can talk to. Ted says you need outboard equipment for a decent master, don't you, though?
No. So many mastering engineers, even many of the best in the world, are totally in the box. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mixers too.
We had a student actually just using in the box. I think he had like an Apollo and in the box tools. Actually had a client prefer his master over somebody at Sterling Sound.
That's right.
Sterling
Right.
Sound.
Yep.
It seems like the whole you need outboard gear, you need a fresh set of ears, you have to send it to someone else is the way to kind of keep mastering behind closed doors for a certain. It's like the myths that keep perpetuating themselves.
That's right.
Yeah, that's dishonest.
It's just not true. We did a Skrillex track this was quite a while ago. We did Skrillex tracks. We did the whole master in 100% in the box. There's the better sound for it. Anyway, I don't want to get hung up too much more mastering because we're talking about mixing today, but I had some questions about this, and I hope this is slightly eye-opening to all of you, and I hope that you can start compartmentalizing these processes and charging more for it, because I want you all to be successful, quit your day jobs, and just be able to do mastering music, because music's beautiful and fun, and we love it. All right, let's switch gears. It's finally time to talk about mixing. So we got some perspective now. Hopefully that was useful, but now it's really time to dive into the process and mindsets behind mixing. And that's why we're here, right? To fix our mix. So let's develop a 2-day plan. We have today and tomorrow, day 1 and day 2. Here's how it's going to work. Day 1, today, we're going to talk about session prep, editing, and initial volume balance. And tomorrow we're going to talk about frequencies, dynamics, and space. Okay, but I have a question for you. Of these days, which is the most important to the final quality of your mix? And what's the ratio? Is it like 50-50, 60-40, 10-90, 70-30?
Yeah, do like a percentage, like number/number. Number/number. A lot of 50-50s.
50-50?
I see a 1090. Oh, man. A lot of people, it looks like tilting. I think most people are kind of tilting a little more towards day 1. 60-40s. 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20s.
Okay, let me tell you the truth. It's 100% 80-20. 100% 80-20. That's a funny, weird thing to say. Day 1, I promise you, what we're gonna convince you of today is that the stuff you do in day 1 is 80-85% of getting a great mix, and that day 2 is just the frosting on top. How could that be? Well, let's break it down a little bit. The 80-20 mixing rule. Why are the initial parts of the mixing process so powerful? Well, session prep really is powerful for a few different reasons. Obviously, we want to be prepared, but we have to think of this in terms of good preparation. And if you know me, you know I love eating and also cooking. And one of the terms you learn in cooking, if you've ever watched cooking shows or anything like that, is the phrase mise en place. Does anyone know what that means? Mise en place? It's a French word, obviously. It means roughly to prepare everything beforehand. So when you're cooking, what you do, you don't just start throwing things on the stove. You prepare everything. You chop everything. You put things in little bowls. You have everything prepared so that that part's done, so that your mindset can shift to cooking. So that you don't have something on the stove going and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I forgot to chop this thing. I forgot to do this thing. And then it's burning on the stove. We've all done that, right? That's the bad way to do it. And it's the same thing with music. If you compartmentalize the process and you get everything prepped the right way and organized and beautiful, then you never have to break this mixing mindset that we're going to enter into. So session prep is important. People underestimate the power of editing. They don't want to do the work sometimes, I think, to edit things properly. I'm talking about timing and tuning and getting everything super dialed in and in the pocket. It takes time, but that stuff's going to pay off in the end because people feel that stuff even more than the stuff we spend our time worrying about. Do things feel really good? Do they sound good? So editing's important. But the thing we're going to focus on most today is this concept, which is volume is everything. What do I mean by volume is everything? If you're mixing, the way you need to think about mixing is that we are creating a sound stage for our listener that is 3-dimensional. Right? We have depth, we have width, and we have height. Depth, obviously, things that are quieter sound further away, things that are louder sound closer. Width is obviously our stereo field. What is height? What affects height in our 3D space of mixing? Does anyone know? It's actually frequencies. Think about it. We as human beings experience frequencies quite viscerally. Sounds that are much higher up, where do we experience them? We have names for these types of things. We call it air. We call it head voice, right? Those high notes that we heard yesterday that were shrill, they were in our jaws, they're in our face, right?
Right in the teeth. Yeah.
Low bass, where do we feel that? It's in our gut, or it's in our legs, or it's in the ground, and the way that our feet connect to the floor. That's where we experience bass. And then mids are like this warm blanket, right? We experience them kind of like a warm blanket that covers our body. That's how we hear things. So we actually affect the height dimension of this 3D space. If we're trying to create space, right, we affect the height dimension by how we utilize frequencies. And all of these have to do with volume. What do I mean by that? I'm going to convince you that frequencies are actually most altered by volume. We think of frequencies as being altered most by EQ. That's not true. 100% not true. Before we ever start EQing anything, we have to understand that every element that's in the mix already has innate qualities of frequency. Shakers, for example, have a bright frequency. Bass has a low frequency. And everything in between has qualities. Some cover greater ranges than others. That's true. And maybe that's where EQ comes in later. But how we place things and where we place things in this three-dimensional space in front of us is the thing that will do that will affect our the range of our height dimension in this space in front of us more than anything else. So we have this in mind as we start thinking about the mix. We take priority, or we take an assessment of everything that we're dealing with, and we start with volume. Things that we want more of in a certain frequency range, we bring forward. If we need more low end, we add bass. We don't need EQ. So you could almost turn this on its side and add faders to it and think of it that way, right? It's our EQ curve, 20 to 20. So as we're pushing volume up and down of all of these instruments, we're actually affecting volume way more than EQ ever will. So volume is everything. Width is most altered by volume. What does a pan knob do? Just changes the volume from side to side. It takes energy away from one side, adds to the other. It's why pan knobs are on volume faders generally, because it is a volume function. We're just changing where it is from side to side in the stereo field. Depth is certainly most altered by volume. That one's easy to understand. Things that are further away are quieter. Things that are closer are louder. And this is certainly just only affected really by gain and volume. Are there other ways to affect depth? Of course, you could use reverb and stuff like that, and we will, but primarily, what is going to affect it the most? It's gain and volume. And even dynamics should be, and this one is something a lot of people don't realize, dynamics should also be most influenced by what you do with volume. So we have all these different ways we affect volume. There's gain. We'll get into the difference between gain and volume. There's panning. But then we also have the tool of volume automation. And hopefully you all know what volume automation is. And volume automation should be the thing that affects dynamics the most in your mix. We think of compressors and limiters as doing that. That's the wrong way to think about it. If you're just going in and trying to control dynamics with compression and limiting, you're doing it wrong. If you watch pros work, what they do is they always do automation, clip gain automation, volume automation first, because you don't want the compressors and limiters to have to do too much. The more they have to do, number one, it can overdo it and make things sound pumpy and bad. But number two, it's taking control away from our intention. What do I mean by that? If you look at this this waveform, you can see that there's a volume automation lane happening here, and the engineer has gone in and effectively done what compression has done, but they've done it with intention. They've taken down the big spike transient on the left And then on the far right, you can see that they've turned up the tail. Well, this is essentially what compression does. It's bringing up the quieter parts and taking down the bigger parts. But we're doing this with a lot more intention by doing it by hand first and some other tools, so that the compressor, number one, doesn't have to do so much, but so that I have more control over it. And if you want to pretend this is a vocal, if you want to make that really expensive sounding vocal, if you watch a professional engineer work on vocals, there's 2 or 3 layers of automation before they ever even compress. Do you know that? That's what makes that really expensive sound. And we're going to demonstrate that today. It's one of the most powerful things I know about this. It's easy to just go in and start throwing EQ and compressors and everything on your track, but volume is everything before you do any of that stuff. It gets you 80-85% of the way there if you're using it right. So our goal today then is volume only mixing. The only thing we're going to work on today is volume. And we're going to show that we can get a mix 80-85% of the way there just with volume. This is going to be your goal too. It's really fun. I like this part a lot. It's amazing what you can do with volume if you focus on that and take the time to do it. And we're just going to have a total masterclass in that today. Other big picture concepts to think of. We're doing this all with intention. Intention's the big concept here. So volume automation and the other tools and painting this picture in this 3D space and all that I just talked about is all about intention, of course. We're taking control of the mix. But we're also being intentional about what we set up to do in day 2. You'll notice as Jake works today on the mix, he'll make little notes to himself and often write them down of stuff that volume can't fix. So that tomorrow he's not just going in and throwing EQ and compression again on everything. He knows exactly what needs to be done. So he's only doing those things. So he's both working with intention more today and intention more tomorrow. And that's a huge concept. We're going to talk about fix first, then enhance mindset. That's how Jake will work today. We'll fix problems first and then enhance. And of course, everything's going to fall back to an objective reference and mix notes, because it's all about the objective, right? And one last note about session prep and editing, just so you all know, and this maybe ties back into the conversation we had earlier about business, editing is not a mixing process. Editing should be done in production process, or it should be a separate process altogether. So if you're getting sessions from people, or if you're getting mix downs from people, and there's tons of editing work to do, you either need to charge more for that or they need to fix that stuff. You need to know that that is a separate process. There are people in this industry who only do editing. That's why we know it's a separate process, because there's people that just do that. So you either need to charge more for that as a business, or you need to have people do that. Take care of it. All right, enough of me. Hopefully I've given you some mindsets to think about as we go through today, but it is, in fact, demo time. We're going to have our good friend, a master of all things, Mr. Jake Codewise, take over on the mic today, and he's going to be demonstrating what we're talking about today and doing volume-only mixing. It's fun to watch Jake work. I hope you're all ready for this.
Sweet. Let's go. You guys ready? Let me know you're ready. Let me know you're with us here.
Bacon.
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 In home the bacon.
Sweet. Hell yeah. Look at all this. Somebody put in a bacon emoji. That's sweet. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Let's start by plugging in a little bit of an agenda here. We're going to do today. First, I'm going to show you just exactly what the session looks like right now. Okay, we're going to talk about organization.
And I should mention on both today and tomorrow, there are certain things Jake is going to do before our webinar just because there won't be time to do all of it together, but he will walk you through everything that he's done. So you're not missing out. He's just already done the work so that we can get to the stuff we really want to focus on. So today he has already prepped the session, and he'll walk you through that. And then we'll focus mostly on the volume part today.
And remind me, Caleb, too, aren't we doing VIP questions at the end of this session?
Yep. Right after you're done, we'll do some VIP questions. Yep.
Sweet. Cool. So this is what we got going on, guys. You're on the right side of the screens. Can you see this all right? Everybody seeing this okay? Right here, I've got like my halo on my mouse. You should see a little red bubble kind of floating around back and forth here. Yeah, Roger. Cool. First, we're going to do session walkthrough, organization, and editing. I'm going to show you what I did to kind of like prepare for this session today. Number 2, we're going to go through volume and panning together. We're going to do this together. I'm going to demonstrate for you, answer any questions that you might have during the process, and then we'll dive into VIP questions here. Dive into Q&A. Cool. Let's start with session walkthrough. Let's go. So these are my buses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buses. Let's pop them open and see what's contained within each one. And I'm going to unhide any other kind of tracks here too. Okay. So here it is. Here's the session. I've got a kick in. I've got a kick sample here, and then I've got a kick sub. All 3 of these are being sent to a single bus. Okay. And then I've got some notes down here on the mix window that kind of explain exactly what I did to prepare these tracks. So the kick sample was actually, I inverted the polarity on the kick sample. All right, which is something you just kind of have to watch out for when it comes to multi-mic'd sources or sources that are kind of like layered on top of each other like that. So if you take a listen here, I'll show you what this looks like and why this is important. On the kick sample, I have the phase inverted using just a simple gain plugin. Here's what these 2 mics sound like together, if you can hear it. Try to ignore the bleed that's going on in one of the kicks right now. Can you guys hear that? It's probably quite quiet. Listen to what happens when I actually flip the phase or invert the polarity is technically what it is on the kick sample. You should be noticing quite a bit of low end coming in here, right? Play one more time. First without the phase flipped. Out. So without, it's actually canceling out a lot of that low end information, right? And then once we flip it, it allows that low end to come through. Right? So I went ahead and did that. And basically what you're looking for when it comes to this kind of stuff, I want to show you. Take a super zoom in. Is this right here. Right? So I want you to check out the direction of the waveform here when we zoom in. See how we have waveforms that go up and then down, up and then down. This is our kick sample right here. They're opposite. This one goes down when this one goes up. That means there's a pretty good chance that these are canceling out some frequencies, right? So what I've done is I'd added a gain plugin, which basically flips this to a down position, flips this to an up position so that these line up. Okay, Is this making sense, guys? You guys with me?
This will do more for you than any other processing you could ever do. Paying attention to this type of stuff is
Mhm.
usually comes later for people.
Yeah, you could also timeline them and nudge them to do a similar thing. Someone was asking in chat.
Yep. So I actually had to do that with the kick, right?
Kick sub.
So the kick sub, yeah. So the kick sub, if we drag this up here, was originally in about this position here, trailing behind the kick in. So I actually just scooched it over.
Nice.
All right. So really, guys, that was a long way of saying when you're dealing with multi-mic'd live sources, make sure all the waves are pointed in the same direction. Down, down. This one is up. This one is up, right? Doesn't have to be exactly super precise, but it's got to be like close enough so that you're not canceling things out. Okay. It'll give you a nice, warm, full sound.
Yeah, good question. Is this considered editing? Well, yeah, technically it is. And if there was a lot of this work to do, you would push back.
Totally.
But if it's just a couple things, you can just take care of it.
Minor things,
It's like-
absolutely.
It's a time thing. If it takes longer to write an email and push back, then just do it, you know.
Totally. Cool. So we've got those all lined up. So this track originally came with 2 snares. Instead of keeping them separate, I actually just got a balance between those 2 snares that I liked, and then I bounced it down to a single track just to simplify things, right? So now all of a sudden, instead of having 2 live snare tracks, I just have 1 to deal with. Right? It's okay to do stuff like that. And then I've got a snare sample here, right? And I had to do the same thing with the snare sample. I just had to scooch it over just a little bit so that it wasn't canceling out some of those lower and low mid frequencies.
Wow, that's why it was sounding so paper yesterday.
Totally. It was scooched over like maybe later in the timeline, I want to say. So I brought it back. Now sounds better. And that's all I did for the drums. Any questions on any of that stuff, guys, before I move on to percussion?
Pretty straightforward. You organized everything, color coded it. It's all session prep. It's all nice and neat.
Yep.
You went through, you edited a little bit, but not too much.
Not too much.
That's great.
You'll see. All right. Cool. Yep. No EQ yet. Nothing. None of that stuff.
Volume only.
Yeah, this is volume only. Yeah, to be clear, you want things pointing the same way in order to not cancel out frequencies. Yes, that is exactly right, Caitlin. Do you tune your drums? Yeah, if you're recording live drums, you tune them before you record them.
I've tuned drums after the fact in some cases, but it's not as ideal.
Gerald asked, do you turn off the tracks that you hide? Yes. Yeah, I absolutely do. You know, I don't like to see that stuff. It's just clutter. What if this was a 2-track? Then you obviously couldn't do any of this stuff. You're just stuck with whatever the 2-track is. Yeah, we're not going to talk about drum tuning, Christopher. You can do just like a Google or a YouTube on that. Cool. All right, we have to move on, guys. I wish I could answer all the questions, but I'll try to nab the big ones when I can.
Yeah, I think people get it.
Percussion wise, so for percussion, there were 6 live clap tracks. And they were all at different volumes. And they were also at all at different timings, which sounded terrible to me. Like it was like they were just way too loose. So So what I did was I adjusted the timing of those tracks, quantized them a little bit, not completely tight, but just I quantized them somewhat. So it just wasn't like all this stuttering kind of clapping. And then I got a panning. You can see down here on the mix window that I panned these hard left and right and balanced these two out. And then I got a volume balance of these two, panned those hard left and right, got a nice solid balance between these two, panned those hard left and right. And then I just took all 6 of these tracks and I committed to them and bounced them right in place to create this. Simple. Right? I don't need all those. I don't need all these these clap tracks when I'm trying to quickly move through a mix, right? These are all kind of like a similar tone, and really they all work together to create one singular sound or one singular texture, right? So, and then somebody asks, so by this, logic, why would you keep the kick sample and the original kick drum tracks? Why would you not bounce those together in place? So my answer to that is flexibility, right? So whereas these claps are pretty similar in tone and I don't have to really do anything with them, the kicks are all very different and contribute to the tone of the sound in very different ways, where I might want to be a little bit more flexible. So for example, this kick in is very much like a high-end kind of attack. So I want you to think about it like this, maybe instead. Kick, attack. We'll use adjectives to describe these tracks instead, like sonic qualities, right? Or sonic characteristics. Here we've got a kick sub, right? Very, very different kind of sound and very different quality of that instrument. Different part of the frequency spectrum. So I'm going to say kick, boom, right? And then this kick sample is just kind of like general overall. There's a little bit of a room texture in there. There's some more mid-range happening in there, right? So that's something that I want to be a little bit more flexible with. These tracks are taking up different areas of the frequency spectrum. Maybe once I get them to a good balance, I'll bounce them all in place. But for now, I'm just sending them all to a single bus. Again, that's the long answer. The short answer is flexibility. I want to have flexibility there. I don't necessarily anticipate needing flexibility with single clap tracks. All right. Make sense? Is that too long? I talk too much, guys. Just let me know if I'm like rambling, if I'm talking too much or I'm giving you too much information. Send me a watch emoji. Cool. And then we've got this clap sample. I went ahead and just quantized that. I had to line it up. It was just a little loose. Yeah, exactly. That's the one, Georgie. Same thing with the shaker. The shaker was just a little loose. So I quantized it. That's it. Just a little bit of timing, scooching it into place, right?
The snake is back.
Yeah, snake is back. Don't worry. We're gonna create a nice little home for that snake. Bass, we've got a DI, we've got a bass amp 1, we've got another bass that I've labeled chorus bass grit right here, and then the bass synth that only happens in the bridge. And by the way, guys, if you're working with these same multi-tracks, you're going to notice that the names are all different. I rename things in a way that makes sense to my brain, and there's no right or wrong way. This is just based on preference. Okay. Next, we've got guitars happening here. Right, so I did a little bit of editing with the guitars. This intro fuzz guitar needed some tuning, so I went ahead and tuned that. Got real tight with that. And same thing with this verse guitar, right? That needed a little bit of tuning here too. These are both single note instruments, so it was easy to just kind of apply an auto tune plug into those, right? Waves tune. And that's it. I think that's all I did with the guitars here. Next, keys. I did nothing with the keys. 0 things. And Eric asked, waves tune a guitar. Yeah, you can totally tune a guitar as long as it's a single note part, right? Since it's a single note, it's not polyphony, right?
Yeah.
If you try to do like chords and stuff like that, depending on the algorithms, like some algorithms actually can do chords really, really well. But some of them are just like, it'll just blow them up, it'll go just like really robotic and like computery kind of sounds, right? So you got to know your tools. And then here we've got the vocals, right? The verse vocals, I had to do some tuning and timing. David asks, how did I know the guitar was off? Yeah, just by ear. Do you normally remove dead space in Elements or just leave them like this in the session? Yeah, I usually just leave them.
Have you done gain staging on this project yet, or are you going to do that live?
I have not. I'm going to show you guys that,
Right.
which is something I haven't done in previous Fix the Mixes, but you guys have been asking for them. So I for a little bit of gain staging, so I figured I'd show you what that looks like today. It's going to take less time than you think. I hope you're not disappointed. But I had to just tune and time this verse vocal. And again, these are named a little bit differently if you guys are working with the multi-tracks that I posted in the classroom. I just named them by where they come into the arrangement: first vocal, chorus, lead vocal, and chorus backing vocal. Actually needed quite a bit of tuning and timing here. So this is actually something that I would have charged for. Vocal editing would have been a whole separate charge. All right. Also aligned the backing vocal to the lead vocal, so they're nice and tight. Yeah, and Javon asks if we can hear. Yep, we can totally listen to that real quick.
This is our sign. We are saved by our Maker. We live life alive. This is our crime. The final nail in our coffin of all that is right.
There's no pitch down or anything like that. That was just a different vocalist with a really kind of like a different timbre to their voice. And Juan, that's correct. There is no auto tune in there. I just used my DAW's flex pitch for pitch correction.
This is our sign. We are saved by our Maker. Live life alive.
Cool. Sweet. I think that's it for the walkthrough, the session walkthrough. That's what we got in terms of getting everything organized, in terms of editing. Any kind of like final questions on that before we dive into volume? Steve says one of the singers is British. That explains everything. You guys know just how to tickle my funny bone.
80 of you just got really offended.
And 80 of you just got real offended. Yeah, exactly. We're all good sports here though, right? We're all good sports. Sweet. Okay. I think we're good. I'm taking a look at the chat here, just giving you guys a couple seconds for any final questions. Did I remove any vibrato on the vocals? Yeah. Definitely. I removed plenty of vibrato on the vocals, but not enough for it to sound like super weird, right?
They sound pretty processed too, but I think in the context of the track, they'll sound pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I actually did all the tuning in context, right? I just got like a rough balance of the tracks, just like real quick, like, 5-minute balance, and then brought in the vocals and just tuned them in context with the rest of the instrumentation, right? Because that's how you're going to hear it, right? Cool. Why do you remove vibrato? Yeah, if it's out of tune, I'll just remove it. Or if it's like, yeah, if it's distracting, right? If it's something that's distracting and glaringly obvious and like pulling focus and just kind of makes you wince a little bit, I don't know. Then I'll just remove it. Too cool?
Cool. Let's rock.
Let's do it. Hell yeah.
Gauge
Move on
staging.
to volume. There's a lot more, guys. Like, we're not going to be able to cover everything today, but there's a lot of like YouTubeable questions I'm seeing in here. How to tune vocals, how do you remove vibrato, all of that kind of stuff, right? That's vocal tuning. You can just YouTube vocal tuning. We're going to focus on like the high level stuff, right? 30,000 foot view here. Right? Things that are really going to move the needle for you the most. So let's move on to volume and panning in action, right? And guys, just make sure that one more reminder for you. Make sure your chat settings are set to everyone. Okay. Cool. Let's do this. First thing we're going to do here, guys, is gain stage. Oh, the magic of gain staging. Oh boy. Here's how I'm going to do it. This is the window you want to shoot for. I'm going to write it down on the screen here. Ready? Yeah, I'll put it right here. I'll do a whole nother section. Gain staging. Can anybody guess?
What are you going for when you're gain staging?
Gain staging target. Oh. What'd you say, Caleb? Sorry.
I asked that same question.
Yeah.
What's the target?
Oh man, -10, -6, -10, -9 RMS, -18, -16, -9, -12, -18, -10. Linda got it. And Chris Garrett got it. It's a window, right? We found that the sweet spot for the size of your waveforms is between -10 and -20 decibels. That's what we like to hit. That should provide us with plenty of headroom while we're mixing, right? That's all it is. Between -10 decibels and -20 decibels. So let's take a look. You can do this manually, or you can do it cheat code way, which I'm going to show you in just a second. First, manually. Bring your fader to 0 and then play the track. You can see right down here on this fader where that's peaking. That's sitting at -1.6 decibels. We want to bring that down to our sweet spot window, which is between -10 and -20. All right. So to do that, use a clip gain function. In Logic, it's right here. In your DAW, it might be somewhere else. I think in Pro Tools, it's directly on the waveform. But basically,
this is gain, not volume.
And
right.
yeah, it is DBFS. That's what your DAW is going to meter things at.
So basically what you're doing here is you're going to your clip gain. And as I click and drag this down, you can see the waveform getting smaller, right? Right in the region. That's what you're doing. You're just making the waveform inside of the region smaller so that when the fader's at 0, we're sitting at that sweet spot. See, we're peaking at minus 10.7. All right, I'm going to do it again on the next one. It's just that easy. Okay, bring the fader to 0, change the size of the waveform until it sits anywhere between minus 10 and minus 20. That's it. No VU meters. You know, you don't need to overcomplicate this thing. And I'm actually going to make it even simpler for you. Truls called it. Can you clip gain in batch? Nice. You guys are on top of it. You guys are on top of it. Check this out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit Control A. This is the cheat code way. Select every single region in here, right? Because we got a whole bunch of chunky waveforms that are going to need some gain staging. Now, everybody's DAW is going to do this a little bit differently, right? So for the Logic users, lucky you, you're going to see how to do it exactly how to do it in Logic. But everybody else, you're just going to have to do a little bit of research on exactly how to do this in your DAW. But there's sure to be a function. And in Logic, we go down to normalize region gain. Then this little window pops up. We want to go to individual regions. That's what we want to affect. The algorithm, we'll select peak, and then the target level, minus 10 decibels. So we're telling the DAW, normalize all of these regions so that they peak no higher than minus 10 decibels. Let's apply it. And when I click apply, I want you to look at what happens to all these waveforms. Ready? Give it a minute. Spinning wheel of death. Boom. See that?
Gain staging done.
All done. Takes like a minute. That's right, Juan. They shrank. Yep, Steve. Can't do that with the console.
Bacon magic. Yeah, I can't do that with a console.
Nice. So guys, make sure to look for, this is the cheat code, right? Make sure to look for like a normalization feature inside of your DAW. Again, that's going to be YouTubeable. And you can use this for gain staging all your projects, right? Make sense?
Yep. And we're gain staging because we want headroom. We want some room to work with as we start working with plugins and volume and different things. And then the ultimate goal is to have this be -6 dB or less on the stereo bus when we're all done. So watch as Jake goes through today. You'll notice that his stereo out won't get really above -6 dB. At least that's the goal, because that's what we want to have it at before we send it to mastering.
Or it might. And then I'll just have to adjust some things. Yeah, so Mariana, we're going to talk about really uneven and dynamic waveforms. Okay, we're going to talk about making those a little bit more consistent too. You're a step ahead. We'll get there. Sit tight. Cool. So that's it. Let's start getting a balance, guys. You ready? Let's do it. I'm going to start with the drums. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to delete all of my notes down here, all my editing notes that I had written down for you guys for teachability, because I want these spaces to be clear for anything, any kind of notes that I want to take as I'm moving through this process, right? Because I'm going to be keeping the end in mind. I might kind of get visions for certain things in terms of placement, in terms of special effects, and I want to have these areas available just to jot some initial thoughts down.
Yep. So we can work with more intention tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. and just laser focus and not get sidetracked or distracted by other things while we're focusing just on volume balance, right? Laser focus. That's the key. So there are many different things to kind of like ways to start a mix when it comes to volume balancing. I like to start with percussive elements. I like to start with those elements that like start to get your head bobbing, right? So for me, I like to pick the kick, right? Most of the time, that's what I like to start with. So let's
You
get a
notice
nice,
he's turned everything down to negative infinity, and he's going to go through and start building a volume mix now, starting
right.
with the kick.
yep, I'm gonna get these drums kind of good to go. And then I'm gonna move on to percussion, and then I'll probably move into vocals. Start with the drums. So there's an interesting phenomenon happening here. Let's actually get that tom in first, and then we'll talk about the phenomenon. Interesting phenomenon happening here. I want you to take a look at the kick track here and the snare track. Let me know if you notice anything weird. What do you guys notice here? Notice anything strange here?
That is strange.
What are you noticing?
The
Caleb?
volume difference.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's crazy.
Volume difference. Check it out. So the kick and the snare are their relationship. The snare, if you just use your ears, right? If you just use your ears, the snare sounds really loud and really upfront and really in your face, right? And the kick sounds like it's kind of sitting below that in terms of volume. But when we look at the meters, you can see that the kick is way up here and the snare is actually visually showing to be quieter. We're peaking at minus 6.7 on the kick bus. And then over here on the snare, we're peaking at a whole 10 decibels less.
Anyone know why that might be happening?
Yeah, frequencies.
Yep.
Low end. It's frequencies.
What do we call it? It's not subsonic, subatomic.
Subatomic.
Submorphic.
I like subsonic better.
Right? So there's a perception of loudness. It's perceived loudness that's happening on the snare drum here. Right? Exactly. There's loudness curve without going into without going into the science behind perceived loudness and things like that. right? It's basically it can all be boiled down to like frequencies, right? So we might not be hearing them, they might not be audible, but they're still providing a ton of energy in that area. And that's something that we can't fix with volume, right? That's something that has to be managed with EQ. So I'm going to write a note here. It says low end management. And I'm going to continue on with the volume balance. I'm liking this so far. Let's check out the chorus section. Actually going to bring down this sub even more. I'm guessing that I'm probably just going to have to take it out. Well, we'll see where the mix goes. Cool. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's move into this verse here and start to bring in some of these percussive elements. I like to kind of get that train moving, right? Anything that fills in the subdivisions, I kind of like to focus on next. Just as a matter of preference, you know, just to get that groove going.
There it is.
John, good God, that shaker.
It's kind of a rough shaker, honestly. We'll make it sound good though.
I know, I'm gonna say with an idea to kind of spread that out. And let's bring in these claps. Bring these in together. Just filling in some frequency content there. You know, these live claps are creating some width. Yeah, so Adrian, the instrument samples were added by you or the producer. I have not added any kind of production to this. Just working with the tracks that were given. So like you have access to all the same exact tracks inside of the school community.
Snaker.
Yeah, the snaker.
I want you to remember something for tomorrow. Someone commented earlier when you bounced down those live claps that they sounded thin.
Yeah.
I want everyone to remember that for tomorrow, because now they sound fine when you, in context of the other clap sample, they sound great. So I'm going to talk about that tomorrow.
Cool.
What's happening there?
All right, sounds pretty good. Hi-hat loop, let's bring that in. Let's go on to some vocals. Any questions here, guys? Pretty straightforward, just bringing things in, right? Do you set levels by ear always, or do you ever use a meter method? The only time I really kind of check the meter is for kick and snare to see kind of like where they're sitting relationally. And as we just discussed, that's not always an accurate accounting of what we're actually hearing. So mostly by ear. Yeah. Did I gate anything? Nope. I didn't see the need to gate anything. Yep, Andre says you're hitting minus 0.5.6, minus 5.6 dBFS on the stereo out. We'll handle that once after we bring everything in.
Police are after you, man.
They're after you. You keep policing Jake on this.
Yeah, keep me in a box, guys.
No wiggle room here.
Nice tight little box.
I love it.
All right. We ready to move on? High pass filter, Simone? Nope. We're doing volume only today. Volume only. No high pass filters, no EQ, no dynamics processing, nothing. Right? We're going to show you some of that stuff tomorrow. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So sit tight. We are just focusing on volume, and the whole point here is for you guys to just see the power of volume only mixing, right?
Yep.
You don't have to overcomplicate a lot of things, right? I mean, it all starts with imagine like the parts of the mixing process are like it's like the food pyramid. Volume and panning is like the bottom of the food pyramid, right? It's the base. It's kind of what everything kind of sits upon, right? So we're just creating that foundation here.
And it's not that the 20% tomorrow isn't important. It's incredibly important, and it takes a ton of technical skill to do it right. But I think people overdo it. I hear a lot more that's over-processed than under-processed. And that's a mindset thing of people going in and doing too much with the tools and not seeing the value of volume. Value of volume. Say that.
Value of volume, value of volume, value of volume. Dane? You're opera. You're an opera singer. It's probably a good warm-up. Diction warm-up for you. Value of volume, value of volume, value of volume.
I don't think that's tongue twisty enough, personally.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, you know what? Some of us are slower than others.
It
Okay?
is for Caleb.
The value of volume.
What?
Value.
All right, sweet. Let's keep moving on. I'm going to bring the vocals in. I like to do my drums and percussion, like my rhythmic elements, and then move over to my vocals. That's just my preference. I think, you know, those are the two things that listeners are kind of drawn to just naturally, right? Just think about it. That's how we communicate, and that's how we operate. We operate based on rhythm, right? Our heartbeat. Everybody's got rhythm inside them, right? And the way that our blood moves. So as humans, we're drawn to that. As humans, we're drawn to the human voice because that's how we communicate with each other primarily, right? So those are the two things that I like to focus on first, and then we'll bring in everything else.
We are saved by our Maker. We live life alive. This is our crime. The final nail in our coffin. Oh, that is right. This is
Cool. Let's check out some of these verses here. Let's go to this first verse, see where that's sitting.
collective devils that revel for a fight.
Oh, weird phasey kind of stuff happening there. Phasey. Fourth phrase. F. Sound. So I'm not fixing that now. I'm going to go back and do that later because I don't want to be diverted. I don't want to rabbit hole and do another thing as I'm kind of moving forward with my volume balance.
A light burning through the night, calling us on home.
Okay. I'm going to get the rest of the instrumentation in there. You know, there's some dynamic, there's some volume fluctuation happening with the vocal that we can address. But for now, I want to make sure that we're down the line. I want to make sure we're addressing that in context with the rest of the instrumentation. So for now, I'm just going to bring everything else into the mix. Check it out. Let's do, I don't know. Let's start at the beginning. Do piano.
Calm, collective devils that revel for a fight. A light burning through the night, calling us on. This is our sign. We are saved by our Maker. Live life. This is our cry. Final burial in our coffin. All that is right. Calm, collective devils that revel for a fight. A light burning through the night, calling us on. This is our sign. We are saved by our Maker. Live life alive. This is our cry. Final burial, coffin. All that is.
All right. So this bitey guitar is getting in the way of the vocal because it's right in the center. And you can hear that, right? This is an EQ thing. Check this out.
We are saved by our Maker. Live life alive. This is our cry.
All right, so there are a few things you can do to kind of attack that. We can pan it all the way to the left. We can pan it all the way to the right. In terms of volume, we can just keep it like really, really low.
We are saved by our Maker.
I like to declutter the center, so I'm going to show you a trick sometime tomorrow about how we're going to create some width with this one.
Live life alive.
And you can hear just like that vocal pops right out when we mute that guitar.
Saved by our Maker. Live life alive.
Hear how much space that creates when we just mute that guitar altogether, right? You guys with me? Can you hear that? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. So
Yep.
for now, I'm just gonna keep it really low and kind of like in the center. But I've got some ideas of how to kind of like handle that. We can handle it with EQ. We can handle it with spatial processing. We'll get to that. You have something to say, Caleb?
Nope.
Cool. And I'll mute that one more time, guys. In here, what's going on? Right?
It's really competing both in space and in frequency.
Yeah, totally. For now, I'm just gonna keep it right up the center, but I'm just gonna bring it way down in volume. We might do something with that later. Or we might mute it. You know, we might not even use it. Guys, see, I'm spending a lot of time on this area because there's a lot of competition happening here. There's a lot of tracks that are occupying a lot of the same sonic space, right? So kind of like giving this area a little bit more attention right now. Yeah, competing for space, both like spatially, like where it's sitting in the spectrum, and a little bit with frequencies. So I've got another idea for that, how we're going to handle that. For now, I'm going to do the same thing with this clean guitar. And here we go, guys. Hold on to your teeth.
This is a sign. We are saved by our Maker. We live life alive. This is our cry. The final nail in our coffin. All that is right.
Ugh, gross. Okay, let's bring in this guitar.
Gross. Notice that Jake's not getting distracted on stuff though. There's a lot of rabbit holes you could start going down and chasing, but then you're not in the right mindset to do volume, right? So compartmentalize things. It's a mindset thing, but it adds up to something in the end.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest lesson here, right? Is the laser focus. That's it. That's it. You know, not getting sidetracked by things. So somebody tried to take some weird shortcut here. What this looks like to me, these two waveforms are exactly the same.
Yep.
You know, they probably thought, hey, I can double the guitars without actually recording a second take.
Did they throw him off phase a little bit? Nope. They did.
Yeah, they did. They might have, because if I switch over to mono,
Didn't really though. Not changing it much.
so on my end, when I have my monitor controller here and I switched over to mono, there's no volume difference between the two. So, you know, we might get a little bit like there might be some cancellation or something happening, something weird, but dude, no. We don't need it.
Yeah, you can throw those off time from each other if you wanted to. and that's a trick, but there are probably better ways to do it just using one track.
I'd rather, man. Like I'd rather just simplify things, give me fewer tracks and then I can like spread it out with some, some spatial effects later, right? If it comes down to that.
Yeah.
But think about how it comes into the arrangement also, right? What's the context of this part? Does the vocal drop out? Is this a handoff for the focal point? Is this the spotlight right now? Yeah, exactly, Josiah. You nailed it. It's now the melody. It's now kind of like the focal point of the track. That's what the listener's supposed to be paying attention to. Is this the same as this? No, that's filtered out a little bit. So different tone. Yeah, it is Dante, totally farty. Probably like push through like something like a Fender Blender or Big Muff or something like that, right? So let's see what that does in the final chorus. All right. So in the bridge, this is a lead, but in the final chorus, it's actually a rhythm. So what I'm going to do is actually split this out and call it chorus fuzz. Toss it down into its own track. So now I've got a lead fuzz in the middle.
This is a sign we are saved by our Maker. We're a firefly.
Lot of low mid information in there.
We are saved by our Maker. We're a firefly. This is our cry. The final nail in our coffin. Oh, that
Okay, last element we have to bring in is this bridge bass synth. And we can do some volume automation. Of course. We've got like the same frequencies, right? So now these elements are fighting with each other for mid-range space. So actually, guys, there are a lot of opportunities here where I would actually go back to the producer, right? And I would push back on the production and say, hey, if your target is XYZ, then maybe we need to rethink the sound selection a little bit more, right? Maybe we need to go back and explore different sounds for this bridge bass synth. or explore different combinations of guitar tones, or explore, maybe a different sound for this lead fuzz, something that's going to hook the listener a little bit better, right? There are a lot of, there's a lot of pushback that can be done on the production side of the process, which I would actually do. If I was given this track as is, I would absolutely have a conversation with the producer or the artist or whoever about a lot of this stuff.
Doesn't mean they have to do it. They're the boss at the end of the day, and we'll work with what we have. But most of the time, people appreciate the conversation if you approach it the right way.
Right. So if this client was like, "Hey, Muse is the target," right? Well, I might suggest some like softer arpeggiated synthesizers that kind of go throughout, right? Or I might layer in some strings or something like that. Well, anyway, just some thoughts, guys.
We'll make it sound good anyway.
Yeah. Okie dokie. So I've got some ideas for volume automation. Before I start with volume automation, any high level questions, guys, that we can answer for you at this point? How we doing? Everybody still with me? Are you guys getting any gold nuggets? Cool. Yeah. Awesome. We got some fire emojis. Sick. Cool. Who was keeping me in the box here? With my my stereo out. Let's check that out. Got a couple decibels over here, right?
Come on, bro.
What's wrong with me?
What are we doing here?
What are we doing? It's amateur hour.
This is a sign we are saved by our Maker. We'll fly of the light. This is our cry. The final nail in our coffin. This is a sign.
Let's see.
This is a sign we are saved by our Maker. We'll fly of the light. This is our cry.
And when we manage that low end, we're going to be down here at -12. Mark my words.
That's true.
This is
All right. So
Yeah,
it's probably
good.
in a okay place, but we'll get that. We'll get that later. Yeah, how come Paul asks, how come you don't bring down the track stack channels or the bus channels? It's just a preference thing. I like to see all of my bus channels at 0, just sitting at 0 in the beginning. I don't know. It's just a preference. That's part of me like being a little bit neurotic. I honestly, I easily could have just been like, "Wah," and just taking the buses down 2 decibels. Totally.
And maybe in the end, you could do that if you were just a couple dB away.
Yeah, if I need to like rebalance some things or whatever, do it on the bus level. Fine. Funny. All right. Let's do some volume automation. Let's go.
This is the magic.
Mm-hmm.
I love this part. This is the magic.
Yeah, somebody asked, will you explain what you just did to get below peaking the master? All I did was bring down all of the faders 2 decibels. I just selected all the faders and brought them all down 2 decibels. That's it.
Within your drums bus.
Within all the every single fader.
Oh, every
Totally.
fader.
Yeah,
Got
I selected every individual track and brought everything down 2 decibels. I don't use a VCA track. All right, guys. Let's go for some volume automation. Let's go. Let's do it.
Anyone need a quick 5-minute break before we jump into volume automation? Bathroom break?
Yeah, bathroom, water. Actually, that's a good call, man. I got to refill my coffee here. Got to pee. Somebody
Let's take
says.
5.
All right, good call. Back here in 5. Sweet. I'll leave you guys some music too. A little elevator music.
Well, if you do music, we might get pulled down from YouTube.
Oh, really?
Just- yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I won't then.
I'll just
Sorry.
hum. I'll hum
Yeah,
for the
okay,
next couple
Michael-
minutes.
Michael, sing something.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's how it
sing
goes.
something. That
I
sounds
have the
good.
licensing rights. All right. See you in 5.
All right. Ooh. What's up, guys? Back.
I'm
Back
here.
with more decaf. Go. Somebody asked, how's the kick hitting -7 when it was gain stage to -10? I'll tell you.
Because he's Jake. Code Weiss.
Because we got these individual tracks that are all being sent to a bus. You didn't gain stage the bus, you gain stage the regions. Right? So those signals are kind of packed on top of each other. They're all going to the same place. All going to the same bus. It's gonna go a little bit over.
Everybody having a good time so far?
I'm having a great time, Michael. Thanks for asking.
We do
have a
these
great
for
time.
Jake.
That's really it.
Yeah, this is a way
Oh.
for Jake to just burn off some energy.
Coffee. Yeah, I gotta stick with decaf. You guys couldn't handle me on caffeine.
I was over caffeinated this morning, and then when I was having those Wi-Fi issues, I almost put my fist through the computer.
Oh no.
I was losing it. I put a polo on for you guys, and I couldn't even get on the fucking webinar. It's a waste. Waste of my nice shirt.
Put a polo on for you.
Yeah.
Someone says caffeine is one of the major food groups for me.
Sounds like a musician.
Yeah.
Michael's such a good balance for the team. We need more chats like that. It's always about Jake and Caleb and Dave. Oh, they're so talented. You guys are such good producers. Oh my gosh. What about the
about
business
Michael?
side?
Back to Wall Street.
What about the cogs of the wheel? Keep
It's
this
only
machine
exists
going.
because of you, Michael. We know that.
No one cares.
Yeah, we just gotta keep the ego in check.
Yeah, it's okay. I have no ego.
What about me? What about me and my polos?
Trust me, I hate myself more than you hate me.
You could never hate me as much as my mom hates me. So nothing you do could matter.
You think I'm a disappointment? You should see what my dad says.
Oh God. Love it. Love it. We have fun here. Guys. Okay. What do you think? Ready to dig back in here? I think we're
Yeah, I just want to tell a quick story leading into what you're about to do. I had someone just last week who hit me up and said, I've been working on this vocal for 2 weeks. And he's actually a good producer, mix and master. I cannot get the EQ right on this vocal. I'm pulling my hair out. Will you please do a private session with me? Happy to pay you for your time. I said, fine. And we got in there and we didn't do any EQing at all. His entire problem that he was having with EQ was volume automation of the vocal.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with EQ. And that's maybe hard to believe or understand, but it was totally true. It solved his whole problem, and it took us 20 minutes and he was good. So what I want you to focus on as Jake does this is just how much better doing this process of volume automation and the layers he's going to do it in just makes this vocal sound without ever touching an EQ or compressor.
Thanks for that. Let's dive in.
No pressure.
I know. Never. Let's crush it.
Yep, we'll probably use Vocal Writer today, Mark, which we're going to count as a volume tool.
That's what it is. All right, guys and gals, let's check it out. I'm gonna go zoom in on this chorus here. How much time do we have left? Yeah, this is probably gonna take about an hour. Probably finish up by 4 p.m. EST. Okay, just to give you guys a sense of what the time looks like today.
60 to 90 minutes.
Sorry, not sorry. Trying to give you all we can, right?
That's right. So yeah, what Caleb said is true. It's all about coming down in here and getting a level of consistency on these vocals. And you do that in layers, do that in a bunch of different ways. One of the ways that I like to do it is to come in and use clip gain automation. Like I showed you how we change the waveform, the size of the waveform with the clip gain feature for gain staging. We can use the same thing to do some volume automation here, right? So if I come in here, I can see, and I mean, I can hear.
This is a sign. We are saved by our Maker. We live life alive.
Right? Live life.
We live life.
This right here, that can come up.
We live life alive. This is our cry. The final nail in our
And this whole chunk right here, look at this whole
Yeah.
chunk.
It's all lost.
It's getting
See how-
all lost.
Disappears.
Yep, just totally buried. So we're gonna bring that chunk up.
The final nail in our coffin. All that is right.
Right, and I can quickly do this, right? You want to marry your ears to your eyes, right? So you can quickly do this by eye, just by sight. You can see the waveforms are bigger or smaller, right? That means they're if there's a lot of disparity there, it means it's not consistent, right? It's a lot of differences, a lot of fluctuations in volume. Typically, in order to get those vocals to sit right in the mix, you want to create that consistency, right? Mariana asks, what about the big spikes throughout? Some of these things, we're just going to have to rely on some dynamics processing later on down the line, right? But other things, most other things we can handle right up front.
This is a sign.
So even those big spikes though, like if you wanted to, you can come right in here. I personally, I would wait until, some processing, but you can even come right in here and get like real nitty gritty about it. Take that spike and just bring it down.
It's a sign.
Right? That's obviously a sibilant, some sibilance though, right?
Yes. Yep.
So we can handle that with de-essing later. You can handle it in many, many different ways, right? It's really based on preference. For me, I'm just gonna let a de-esser handle that later on down the line. This chunk, that can come up just a little bit. And again, I'm just doing this by eye. I'm eyeballing all of this stuff. Cool. Looks good. Move on. Let's move on to the other chorus. This chorus here. And it looks like probably this little piece is going to have to come down. Let's take a listen.
This is a sign. We are saved by our Maker.
This whole piece can come up. Right? And then probably this whole piece can come up. See what we're doing here? I mean, I can spend a lot of time kind of like getting really detailed with this. We're going to show you some shortcuts on how to do this too. Let's just get it to a spot that's good enough.
This is a sign. We are saved by our Maker.
This part right here. Bring that up.
By our Maker. Live life
Yeah. Getting buried.
Live life alive.
Gross. Let's control that. down a little
Yeah,
bit
and you
more.
can do this with the background vocal too.
This is our cry. The final nail in our coffin. The final nail.
And even though we're going to use Vocal Writer here in a minute, I would still do this before Vocal Writer.
100%. This is my process. I mean, I'll do this manually and Vocal Writer, right?
Like I
Just-
said earlier, if you watch a lot of the pros that do vocal editing, you'll see them go through in multiple phases of automation because they don't want any one tool doing too much heavy lifting, and that's just how they get that perfect sitting, expensive sounding vocal.
Let's listen to this because I made a lot of cuts.
I'll make her live life alive. This is our cry.
That's a really good example of how powerful this is, right? Just going up as the singer moves up in pitch there, gets louder. It obviously pops so much out of the mix, right? Once we handle that with a little bit of clip gain automation, we're able to set it in a nice consistent
This is our cry. The final nail in our coffin. Oh, that.
cool.
That's already sounding better. I noticed before it was sounding really amateurish because the vocal was dipping out in and out of perceived volume. You couldn't hear it sometimes. Sometimes it was too loud. All of a sudden, it's already sitting better in the mix just on this first pass of automation.
Totally. Totally. We'll just tighten up this last chorus here just very quickly. I'm just because I think you guys get the idea. I'm not going to spend too much more time on this. Right after I've done all my cuts and I've done all my clip gain automation, I'm going to go ahead and crossfade everything. Done. Cool. So now, even if we zoom out, take a look at the waveforms. You know, they should be generally pretty close to one another in
can
size. These are a little fat. All right, but again, I'm not going to get too picky here with you guys on in the session, just for the sake of time. Right. I crossfaded everything like super quick, but just by using the control panel here and Logic. Right. There's a crossfade, and then I went to the fade out, and I crossfaded by like 5 milliseconds. Just pick a number. And you know, you do the same thing on all of your vocals throughout the song. Again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to do all of this today, but I will demonstrate another layer of creating this kind of dynamic control and this volume consistency. Right? First, sip of coffee.
You just see his like power meter go like this.
It's like
A
yeah,
decaf.
It's a
Street
big
Fighter.
flash.
It's placebo coffee.
All right, let's do it. Let's do some vocal writer. So one way to create that consistency is clip gain automation. Another way, vocal writer. We love this tool. This is my favorite plugin. It's my favorite plugin from Waves. Right here, vocal writer. They have a lot of good stuff. This is my favorite. To some of you, it might not seem very sexy, but to me, very sexy. Let's get it going. So basically what you do is you set the threshold for this thing. It's gonna move the fader up or down based on wherever you set the threshold. So even just in a default state, let's just see what it does to the chorus, right?
This is our sign. We are saved by our Maker. We live life alive.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and bake this into the track so you can see kind of what's going on here. So you should now notice that these waveforms are starting to look a little bit more consistent across the board. Sure, there are some kind of like spikes in dynamics and things like that we can fix by adjusting some of the controls on the plugin itself. But this is what I really want you to focus on, is how it affects the waveform itself. Now these are starting to look a little bit more like sausages. For the most part, there's still some kind of transients that are poking out that we can fix. So let's dial this in. I'm going to set this attack to fast.
This is our sign. We are saved by our Maker. Live life alive.
So just by changing that attack, let's see what it does to the waveform. Again, I'm going to bounce it in place. And all this is doing is like automatically controlling the volume, right? Love the track. You can see these waveforms are small. It's brought them up in volume, right? All these are fatter and more consistent with one another. All right, so basically it's just the exact same thing we were doing manually, but you're letting the plugin do the work, right? Another way you can use this, it's a little bit more control. Check this out.
I was just going to say, do that other thing.
Do the other thing.
Do the other thing.
Mhm.
I like to do it this way, and I'll show you what. Jake will show you why in a sec.
You can actually have this automate volume automation directly onto the track.
This is our sign. We are saved by our Maker. Live life alive. This is our crime. The final nail in our coffin. All that is right.
Yeah, dude, already sounding better, right?
Yep.
And now you can go in here, and if it's not catching everything that you want it to catch, or it's not being as consistent as you want it to be, you can come in here and move a few of these points around, right? Just manually. It's a little bit more flexibility there.
Legend says, "Wait, what?" That, like, can't
Wait,
believe
what?
this- Like, wait, what? You can't believe this exists, or
Wait, what?
Yeah, so if you wanted to go take care of that peak now, for example, you have an automation lane that's controlling volume, and you could go in really specifically on that peak at the end of the first region, or that one, and you go in and just do it.
Yep, we can
So
bring
then
it
the
down.
de-esser has to do less later.
Exactly. Right. So for example, right here, right?
The other thing rocks. Do the other thing.
The other thing. Yeah.
Do the other thing.
See, right? We can create a point right here and just have that dip down just for that moment. If I can figure it out.
Hello. Some weird setting.
bug. Probably just a bug.
Well, it's not on read. That's going to be on read too,
All right.
right? So super flexible, guys. Like this is a game changer in terms of like speed and efficiency, right?
This is our sign. We are saved by our make.
Cool. Any questions before we move on? I got one more thing to show you. Yeah, you can do volume automation with just the fader from Logic. The problem with that that I've found anyway, that is just like just bothers me. It's just an inconvenience. Is that if you do volume automation in Logic, then you can't move the fader up and down anymore throughout the track. It's just going to snap to whatever you've automated it to, right? So what I like to do if I'm going to do manual volume automation, I'll just do it with a gain plugin more towards the end of the channel. And I'll just bring that up here. And I'll write in my automation with the gain plugin instead. Right. Just like go like that and like put all my automation points in. That way I still have like the plugins doing all the automation and all the work. And that way I still have like control over the static volume of the track using the fader.
Yeah, and if anyone did happen to use volume automation, if you didn't buy a vocal writer or didn't use, obviously you're still going to use clip gain automation. You can still raise the overall volume by using the just to the right of the reed on the track itself, below the volume fader. There's like I wish I could point to it. On the track itself, on the very right edge, there's the number that shows the dB volume. If you click on that and drag it up and down, you can bring the overall volume up and down. But to Jake's point, it doesn't let you grab multiples of those and bring them up and down at the same time. But that's just for Logic users that want to change the overall automation volume.
Yeah.
So if you want to know my full process, for example, I'll go in and do clip gain automation, then vocal writer, and either take a vocal writer lane automation or go in with a gain plugin automation like that, and then think of it just very like performance-wise, or thinking about the vocal and what parts I want to capture, and really going in and just making choices about the ends of phrases and how much we hear. And I feel like there's a lot of magic that happens in between the words that it's easy to forget about. But if you go in and write in some of that kind of like what Jake's about to do, like at the end of phrases or different things, you capture that intimacy of the vocal. And so it's like a 3-step process. This is all before compressing. And then by the time you compress, you're doing a few dB and it's just totally locked in and really solid in the track.
Yeah,
so just find those magical moments you want to enhance, I guess, is the point. Go through and find those moments where the intimacy of the vocal needs to come up a little bit more than the vocal writer or the automated tools are going to kind of allow it, and make those kind of beautiful choices.
Yeah. So for just as an example, Caleb, for something like this, where you've got the vocal kind of trailing off, right? Like to clip gain that is nearly impossible, right? You'd have to chop it up into like all these different.
It'd be stepwise in that case.
Yeah, exactly. It just be kind of crazy to do that if you wanted that to be a little bit more consistent, right? So instead, Caleb's talking about manually kind of ramping the volume up.
And Vocal Writer will do that, but it's sitting within certain parameters. And most of the time I may want it to sit within those certain parameters, but there may be moments in the song. So I'm talking about just that extra special magic of finding those magic moments and enhancing those. That's kind of the last step, and then compress.
Yeah, it could be like a breath at the end of a word or something like that, right? Or maybe a quick breath at the beginning of a word that you actually want to stand out.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, they're very stylistic, character-based decisions. Right?
All of it's leading up to that expensive sounding vocal.
Exactly. Cool. Last quick thing here, and then we'll get to a Q&A, guys. I had a few notes that I wanted to handle. I'm not going to finish the rest of the vocals here today just for the sake of time. I think you guys really understand the concept there. For a few other things, we had, these giant piano chords, right? The piano is relatively quiet in most of the song until this like very last chorus, where I think it's just like popping out of the arrangement way too much. So I'm just going to come in here and just do a little bit of gain automation.
This is a sign. We are saved.
Right now, no longer kind of like stealing attention.
Yeah. Vocals aren't the only thing that need automation. You'll find any other dynamic. So a lot of times guitars or bass, you can go in and do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. What else we got here? And then I just had one more note. It looks like these chorus guitars. Yep. So there's like a stylistic thing here.
This is our sign. We are saved by our.
Cool. So these guitars are kind of like there's a big gap, basically. There's a big gap in the arrangement here. And I think the energy and excitement and just like the chunkability of those guitars can just take a step forward volume wise. So let's do it. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna use a gain plugin like I just showed you guys. We're gonna go in here just in these sections that lead into the chorus. Got a gain plugin here. This is an opportunity. And I'm just going to turn those guitars up for just those couple bars, right? Couple decibels for those couple bars.
This is our sign.
Right? Bringing them forward just a touch in that gap when there's no vocal. 2 decibels. And I'm going to do that again over here. Just maintain that consistency.
Jake, I don't know if you already mentioned this. The gain has to stay as the last plugin in the chain of whatever. he's
Yeah.
doing. Because in this case, and I'm clarifying this because a lot of people asked about what's the difference between gain and volume. Gain, as it pertains to how he's using this gain plugin, is different from fundamentally what gain and volume is. And not to be confusing, but he's using this as a replacement for a volume automation lane, right? And it has to be the last in the chain because it's affecting the overall sonic quality. He's going to do a bunch of processing on that track prior to that, and he wants to adjust the volume after all that processing, right? So that's really an important distinction to make.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And we got a couple more minutes. Let's go ahead and finish up these vocals. You guys cool with that?
Yeah, let's breeze through them. We won't talk a lot, but I just want you to see the process through. I think that'll be cool, and then we can hear how much better they sound just with volume. I think that's the point and the takeaway here.
Cool.
Collective devils that revel for a fight.
I mean, just this phrase alone, like, look how powerful.
Collective devils that revel.
It's a really good example.
Yep, at the end of the phrase, needing intimacy. Yep, exactly.
Right? We wouldn't have to do that if it weren't for the performance, right? So it really kind of all comes down to,
A lot of it's mic technique.
yeah, performance. right? We want to listen back to this stuff, right? You can't just like shrink it or or enlarge it, right? Listen back. Sometimes it'll sound like super unnatural, and you gotta make sure you're kind of like riding the line the right way.
Collective devils that revel for a fight, a light burning through the night, burning through the night, calling us on.
Listen to that. Right? Well, you can't. You can't hear it.
Calling us on.
And that's one of those beautiful moments. The end of that phrase right there is something I'm going to keep in my mind for the end. And I'm going to make sure the end of that word really comes out to the listener, right?
I mean, and you can do that. I think in this case, we might even be able to do it here with clip gain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hear that little breath he does right after? It's super cool.
Right.
It's very beautiful.
There's a balance.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Let's crossfade that. Next verse.
Sunlight, cloudy skies.
Is a piano.
Yeah.
What's that?
People have been hating on the piano for a
Oh,
couple
yeah?
years now.
It's just the wrong sound, right?
Yeah.
So again, this is not like this is a production decision, right? They chose a piano that is of a brighter tone and is it has a really abrasive and aggressive attack or velocity to it, right? This could all have been fixed in the production process if they chose a warmer, darker kind of tone with a gentler performance, right? Or a lower velocity, right? Less of an attack. But I mean, again, that's a conversation that you would have to have with the client. In this scenario, we don't really have that, have the control, right? Are there things that we can do to Uji it into place? Absolutely. You're going to see some of that stuff tomorrow.
The last note of that. No.
I know. I mean,
Sunlight,
you try to throw a compressor on all that stuff, it's only going to catch the big stuff, and the stuff that's getting buried is still going to be buried. Or
Yep.
if you slam it with a compressor or a limiter, it's just going to squash. And it's going to sound unnatural. Here, we're just using volume, and it sounds nice and natural and still consistent, right? Without all that additional squashing and overprocessing of dynamics, right? Of dynamics plugins.
cloudy skies,
That one's gonna come up. This whole thing.
cloudy,
I don't even know what's going on there.
cloudy skies,
It's just a
cloudy skies, cloudy,
actually.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
cloudy skies.
Could you spell that, please? Could you spell that for me?
What?
Yeah, FSHFSF. Some P's maybe.
PHs.
EHF.
My eyes, my eyes realize that all this world, that all this world conforms
British slang.
to no side.
That's hot.
Hello, T.
To no sides conforms to no sides.
Amazing. Let's crossfade it.
Yeah,
Crossfades.
that is sibilance. Ye Ray. The combination of a consonant with sibilance. So it was a TS in that case.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call this rabbit holing. I think this is very intentional stuff, the stuff that actually moves the needle. It's okay to spend some time on that. Also, if Jake wasn't teaching, he would have had this done in about 10 minutes. 5. Spend your time on what stuff moves the needles and not chasing magic
Chasing.
rabbits.
Exactly. Well put. Magic rabbits.
I mean, I love magic rabbits, but and that was the problem with the guy that I did the session with. He had multiple layers, right? And so he was having some weird sibilant things and some parts that were sticking out, and he was trying to correct it with EQ, but every time he did that, it made the vocals sound flat. And so we just went in and carved out the moments that were too loud and brought up the moments that weren't, and evened everything out. And he went, "Oh my gosh, all the EQ problems I've been chasing just went away. Those things aren't poking out anymore. I don't have to like apply EQ here even." Does that make sense?
So it's my goats. See, so like after I do this, I'll bounce things in place like that so I can see things a little bit more clearly because I've got like all these cuts and stuff like that going on. Just a pain. Go.
Calm, collective devils that revel for a fight,
That phasey F.
a light burning through the night, calling us on home. This is our sign. We are saved by our Maker. Live life alive. Live life.
Getting there.
Getting there.
Live life alive.
Some of this is performance stuff. If there's something that's like really terrible in the performance, I'll actually copy and paste something, right? So for something like this,
Live life
live life, right? Or live,
by our Maker. We live life.
live life.
We live life. Live life.
I might just use like this part of the phrase here, copy and paste it over here. If it sounds natural enough, I'll go with it.
Live life.
And this just has to come up, right?
We live life.
That we is getting lost, right?
We live life alive. This is our crime.
Cool.
We live.
Let's get that we.
We live life alive. This is our crime. Live.
You can't even hear it in there.
We live life.
It's a what? It's a hiccup in there, right?
Yes, Trevor. He's been mostly doing the auto crossfade, but he's just doing a couple manually as he goes.
What?
Huh.
But so I pasted that we in there. Let's see what it sounds like.
We live life.
Way better. Yeah, way better.
Totally. We'll crossfade that. Sometimes you get lucky and it fits. Wait.
This is our crime. The final nail in our coffin. Oh, that is right.
Everything else in terms of consistency is going to come from dynamics processing at this point. You know, layers of limiting or compression or clipping, what have you. All right.
But you got it 80% of the way there, which is the idea.
100%. That's 100% the idea.
It's 80% of 100%.
So
100%.
let's just drag in the poopy mix real quick.
Compare.
Yeah.
Also, do we have a reference? Because we would want to check that.
Oh yeah, I'll bring the reference in there too. See what we got.
So
Poopy
once you kind of get that initial volume balance, then we're going to check against a reference and go, okay, are we in the ballpark? And if not, I'm not going to go in an EQ to get in the ballpark. I'm going to go in an EQ with sounds, like we talked about before, to get within the ballpark, and then we're there.
Yeah, I don't use Dante. I don't use VCA. Like, you mean like summing channels? VCA typically only gives you like a volume thing.
We are saved by our Maker. Live life alive. This is our crime. The final nail in our coffin. Oh, that is right. We are saved by our Maker. We live life alive. This is our crime. Final nail in our coffin. Oh, that is right.
Cool.
I'd really love it if we never had to listen to that poopy mix again. Anyone agree with me on that? Should we put it to rest for forever?
You got to A/B it when Dane's done with the master, though.
Fine.
Sorry.
Just makes me think of the dentist. It really does.
Sorry, guys.
It's traumatizing.
Cool.
I feel triggered.
I feel triggered.
Isn't that the word they say these days a lot?
Yeah, millennial.
Everyone's condolences too.
Thoughts and prayers to my triggering.
So what do you want to do here? You want to bring in a reference or two?
Yep, let's just check it against reference. We'll make any last adjustments, and then we'll give you guys your homework and answer some VIP questions. Sorry for the long session, but it's kind of sorry, not sorry, you know.
Well, I was going to add one thing. This is like a weird request, but if you guys enjoyed this session and everything that Jake and Dane and Caleb did, if you guys can just go spread some good juju about mastering.com out into the world. Our reputation is really important to us. We're trying to build ourselves as like legit, you know, education industry. So if you can go spread the good word on Reddit or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and just let them know that we're serious and we take care of the people who come into this, and it would just be really helpful for us. So that's my humble request.
Appreciate all of you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, and definitely if you're getting some golden nuggets here. Totally.
Yeah, it's hard enough to stand out from the kind of the snake oil salesman in this space, and so we like to prove it rather than just say things. So if you guys enjoyed this, it would mean a lot if you went and spread the word. So thanks.
And thanks for the kind words, dude. Like, just as you guys are putting things here in the chat, I'm catching some really kind words.
Oh
Awesome.
yeah, everybody's amazing.
This has been a good group. Funny and smart.
Jake is killing it.
Dude,
This is a good group, funny and smart.
Funny and smart.
all right, let's listen to some references. Son of a gun. Let's bring it back.
We are set. We will fly.
One thing here. We're not listening for everything right now, right? What are we listening for?
Yeah, we're listening for volume balance and overall kind of like placement of things.
It's going to sound different, so we can't get distracted. We just have to focus on the big picture stuff. General
Yeah.
volume balance, general EQ balance. And
Yeah,
that's
a
what
lot
we're
of
gonna
people
correct right now.
Yeah, a lot of people get thrown off by that, right? So like if you're just like you've just done a volume balance, keep in mind you haven't done any frequency management. You know, we haven't touched any of the low end on any of the kick or anything. We are just we've trained our ears to pay attention to what we want to pay attention to, right? Just basic volume balance and some width, right?
And there's no real difference between referencing for mixing and mastering at this stage of it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't choose a different song or anything. It's the same.
This is our sign.
Yeah, to me, the first things that I'm kind of like honing in on, I'll just tell you what I'm listening for. Kick, snare, vocals. Where's the kick, snare, and the vocals sitting in this, in the references, and where's it sitting in my mix? Are they in the ballpark? So all I'm listening for right now.
We are saved by. We will fly for.
I think those are sitting pretty
Yeah, they're exact.
dead nuts. Let's go on the get up and fight. The production in Get Up and Fight has the snare seated back in the mix a little bit with more spatial processing. So that's what's making it sound like it is further away. Definitely low end on the kick is, you know, taking over here, right? We already knew that. Got to clean up some muddiness on the vocal. Actually, I might gain stage this. Could be a gain staging thing. Happy with that. Let's check our third reference.
We are saved by our man. We'll fly This is our cry.
A little bit more of a gang vocally thing on Thought Contagion. So I would kind of put that in terms of like ranking these. I'd say Blockades is probably closest, followed by Get Up and Fight, and then Thought Contagious, like least similar to this track.
Let's show how they compare on the with the paths. I bet you'll see that the references have a little more low end.
Oh, maybe not. With the sub kick we got going on.
Oh, that sub kick.
Let's put these on different tracks though, right?
I like I like that little laugh.
It's that drunk face emoji. What do they call that? I don't even know what the official term is for that emoji. It's one of my favorites. Where is it? It's not even here. Can you guys post that? You know which one I'm talking about? It's a drunk face emoji. Derp, the derp emoji. What is it? There it is. Derp. All right, that's enough. And let's do a So all I'm doing here, guys, is sending my mix to its own aux so that I can have separate tracks for the separate analyzers. I'm actually going to get rid of Thought Contagion and just kind of base it on these.
This is our sign. We are saved by our Maker. We will fly for life. This is our cry.
So this is mine on top, or I'm sorry, on the left. And then this is Blockades. This is one of the references on the right-hand side here. What are we seeing? What are we observing? A little bit of thickness in the mud range, right?
The S's are causing that spike at the 8K-ish range.
This right here. Yep, exactly.
And there actually is a little room, just a hair, for some like 60 to 100, I think. But it's pretty close.
Right in here. Yeah, and this way out of line.
Yeah, that's going to go away tomorrow.
Way out of line.
Really what it comes down to is the difference between this and what we had prior is we've fixed problems, right? And the difference between what we have here and the reference is enhancements, right? There's not a ton. I mean, we will solve some resonance issues, some additional problems with S's, but for the most part, volume is fixing a lot of the problems that occurred in the previous mix.
Yeah. Total just volume. Great point.
No trickery.
That
No
pass
trickery.
is pretty close. That's pretty close. We're well within range for moving on to the 20% phase where we just refine everything and put a cherry on top.
Right on. Cool, cool. I'm gonna hand it back to you, Caleb.
Yep. So, what does this mean for all of you? Of course, we want you to do the same thing, right? Action items. We want you to start over your mix, even if you have a mix going right now. based upon what you learned from yesterday and what you've learned from today, we want you to attempt a volume only mix. So save an alternate version, do a save as, whatever your DAW does to do that. Start over and gain stage everything properly. You know, do session prep, gain stage everything properly, edit everything nice, and then attempt a volume only mix, starting with all your faders at negative infinity. So remove all plugins and processing plugins, bring all the faders down to negative infinity, prep, edit, and volume balance your session to the best of your ability. Volume panning only, no plugins allowed, except maybe Vocal Rider.
Vocal Rider's okay if you got that one.
And a gain tool if you want.
Thanks for
And
the
see
kind
how
words,
far you
guys.
can get it. See how far you can get it. See if you can get it to sounding pretty dang good. 80% of the way there, just with volume. And feel free to share your volume only mix in school just for fun. It's good to hear everything like that, and it's engaging. So
So like the question, what do you mean by start over? Do you mean write a new song? That's not what we mean. Just remix
Oh.
a song you already have.
yeah, just start your mix over. Everyone clear on that? It's fun. I really love volume only mixing. It's really fun to see how far you can push it just with volume tools. All right, and let's finish up with VIP questions. Jake, do you have those ready?
Sick. Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring them up. And I see you guys in the chat. Thanks for all the kind words. Awesome. I hope you got some gold nuggets here. You're able to implement all of this stuff into your assignments tonight. Cool. Links, here we go. VIP questions. Oh, not too many. What do you do differently if asked for a 5.1 mix? Anybody care to answer that one?
Mix it in 5.1.
Good answer.
That's a whole different process. Probably don't have time to break it all down today, but there is a process for that. You need the right setup, obviously, to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it all starts, right? It all starts in the same place.
Yep. But it's all the same. It's all the same mindset.
Room.
All the mindset is the same, and the approach is the same. The process is slightly different, is all.
Brett Owen asks, I'm not sure yet. Hey,
Neither am I.
standing by.
I feel that one.
Go foul.
Sorry, Brett. I had to read it. It was just too good. Reed Martin asks. Wait, stand by. Techniques to get more dynamic range in my mix. Most of the time doing folk rock type of mixes. Would love to get a dynamic range of minus 10 LU or so. I struggle to get less than minus 5 LU. So taking all of that out of the taking the numbers, LU, all of that stuff. Techniques to get more dynamic range in my mix. Let's just simplify it, keep it at that. All right. Thoughts, guys?
Yeah, usually the question is, how can I control my dynamic range more?
That was my first thought.
It's not usually how can I have more of it. It's usually the other problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to think of there's ways you can add more. A lot of it would just be how you capture things and
Turn up your transient heavy tracks and turn down all your other tracks.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Surefire way to get more dynamics.
If what you mean though is how do you make your song sound more dynamic? Usually that's a trick question because too much dynamic sounds bad. And so people are always trying to. I think the problem is too many mixes are squashed too much and masters are squashed too much.
That's exactly where I was going to go.
And so there's no dynamics, right? And so it's about finding the sweet spot You know, we're kind of going out of this phase of the mastering war, the loudness wars. Thank goodness we're going into a range where we're not pushing things so much and we're getting a little bit more dynamic, but it's just less pushing, allow the dynamics to exist. And there are some things you can do on a master compressor to bring out certain transients more or glue them in better. So a faster attack will knock the transients down and glue everything more in. A slower attack will actually bring them out, especially if you couple it with like a slower release or a faster release.
Yeah.
But mostly just turn things up that have dynamics and don't over process stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Totally. Most of the time, this question is probably coming from a place of over processing, right?
Yeah.
Is it kind of unlearning some bad habits, right? To make things sound like they're alive and they're breathing and they're open and they're not squashed.
I also think sometimes people confuse dynamics with dynamic waveforms. I think dynamics in tracks are the types of sounds and the performance. Even if what I'm trying to say is we just leveled out all the volume of the vocals, right? So you could say, well, isn't that getting rid of all the dynamics? No, that's not what creates dynamics in vocals. Dynamics in vocals is created by performance. The volumes can be exactly the same and parts can sound more dynamic than others.
Yeah.
So don't confuse the two.
Yeah, it's intensity, right? Intensity is what it creates that feeling or that emotion or that excitement, right? How the
If-
words are enunciated or how you project. It's not the difference in volume levels.
Right. It's not a volume level thing. In fact, if you try to add volume level stuff to raise and lower intensity, it's not going to end up sounding good. That's not the way to do it.
It's performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, dynamics is like on the micro level is like transients, right? Really, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, peaks. Yeah.
Peaks, transients. Expressive, if you're talking about dynamically being expressive, right? Then we start getting into the interrelationship between verse and chorus and the structure of the song, the way things are arranged.
Cool. Hopefully that's not too confusing. Kind of exploring that question as we answered it.
I see, Christopher, I see you typing volume over and over and over again. I see
we
you.
said
I just
volume
wanted you to
yesterday?
I just wanted you to know that I see you.
It's a drinking game now.
I know.
Every time we say volume, oh, you'd all be dead.
Everything is volume. Is that where this is coming from? I'm missing.
Yeah.
You'd
Yeah.
all be dead. Next question. This looks like the last one. VIP people, if you're in here, make sure to go fill out the form that you were sent. If you have questions. Aaron, this one just came in just now. So Aaron went and did that.
Slick.
Can you please explain using a compressor like you're talking to a fifth grader?
Michael, you want this one?
As a fifth grader,
I'm just kidding.
son, you're failing out. That's what I was told as a fifth grader.
I guess maybe more specific, what part of compression we need to explain? Because that's
Like what a compressor does.
yeah. Yeah, like maybe
He says bingo, what a compressor does.
yeah, what a compressor does is simply control dynamics. It controls how loud do you want your loudest parts to be and how quiet do you want your quietest parts to be. Compression will bring in the dynamic range depending on how much you compress it. More compression is going to have less dynamic range. Less compression is going to have more dynamic range.
And we don't have time to just like go into like a whole a whole lesson on compression. I think that one's also pretty YouTubeable.
Yeah, as far as a fifth grade answer though.
Yeah, as far as a fifth grade answer,
Bringing up the quiet parts and compressing down the loud parts.
can automatically turn loud sounds quiet.
It's like the car ride with your mom, right? Like she wants to turn down your loud rock music, so she goes to the knob and turns it down when it gets too loud. And then her classical song comes on next and she turns it up.
That's Wavy's.
It's almost
metaphor.
like so your mom is the compressor.
Your mom's a compressor. You watch what you say about my mother. Good gosh.
I'm specifically talking about Michael's mom right now.
Yeah, jeez. My gosh.
Well done. Too funny. Somebody asks, where can I download the multi-tracks for this? Yeah, you can go ahead and click on the classroom tab in the school platform and go to the day one replay. I posted the multi-tracks in there. Christian, your mama got an infinite ratio.
It said that did this guy just call my mom a compressor?
Yeah, and Martin, thank you for linking to that. Martin just went ahead and linked to it in the chat. Guys, so if you're looking for the multi-tracks for this, you can download them using that link that Martin just posted. Okay, I'm going to post it again right now. Here we go. That's not it.
Yeah, my dad's a transient master too.
That is not it. Let's try it again. Boom. Wait. Those
Well,
are all the
thank you.
questions that we have.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here. That's the end of day 2. Go and do the homework and ask us if you have any questions. You can contact us in school, post in there, help each other. Tomorrow we're going to get into the 20%, still very important, and we're going to show you a process for all of that and be very intentional with that whole process and make this song sound great. So have a good evening. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
guys. See you tomorrow.
Have
Thanks.
a good one.